The end of another great year of gaming approaches, so it's time once again to look back at all the levels, menus, boss fights, and cutscenes we got to experience this year. I'm Dan the Video Ninja, and these are my top 10 games of 2025. It becomes a real challenge year after year to narrow this list down to an even 10 entries, since there's always so much to play and talk about each year. So as usual, let's do a quick recap of all the honorable mentions that didn't make this year's list, but were still very fun to play. An incredible 12 months of gaming. Now, let's see what's made its way all the way to the very top of the list. Here are my top 10 games of 2025. With the success of last year's Balatro, a slew of similar quick and dirty casino games popped up in the indie game circuit that each tried to capture that game's same slot machine-like sense of excitement. So it's no surprise that one of the few successful attempts turned out to be a game about a slot machine. Clover Pit trapped players in a grungy dungeon cell with nothing but a cursed one-armed bandit and little else besides a broken toilet and a slim chance for escape. But with a few lucky trinkets to help out and a familiar one more round roguelike sense of stubborn perseverance, I, for one, soon became addicted to feeding the greedy machine and pulling the handle again and again, chasing after ever-growing and ever-elusive jackpots.
Let's go gambling.
This year's pick for my favorite multiplayer game featured an army of adorable bumbling semi-bots tasked with finding and collecting valuable loot from dangerous, monster-filled locations that they had no business rooting around in. There were endless laughs as my friends and I rushed and stumbled around the various spooky locations, jumping at shadows and getting our poor little bots into all kinds of trouble. r.e.p.o did a fantastic job of capturing the manic fun of visiting a haunted house with a group of friends and screaming and laughing along with them anytime anything jumped out at us. It was frantic in all the good ways, it was accessible for newcomers, and it never stopped being a lot of spooky fun to share with friends. The second game on the list this year with Pit in the title, and the second game on the list this year that's aiming to provide a juiced up new spin on an established gaming idea. Ball Pit reaches all the way back nearly 5 decades ago to the infancy of gaming itself and taps into the roots of the foundational arcade classic Breakout. In that game, you were essentially playing one-player table tennis with a destructible wall that you had to chip away at with your ball. Now, nearly a half-century later, you've got an army of balls that you're using to break down hundreds of walls made up of thousands of fiends and monsters. Luckily, classic games are not the only thing that Ball Pit is pulling influence from, as your many balls can all be powered up and mix and matched via a Vampire Survivors-esque roguelike leveling system. Discovering all the insane combinations of powers you can infuse your balls with makes run after run in this game a fun, if a little overstimulating, rush.
So I need you to buy Ball Pit, so it makes $1 bajillion, so Kenny has to make more Ball Pit. So more people buy Ball Pit, so Kenny makes more Ball Pit, so buy Ball Pit. Available now.
Shifting gears from the fast and furious to the creepy and the kooky, Karimara Beneath the Forlorn Limbs is an itsy-bitsy bite-sized spooky narrative detective game set against Normandy folklore. This hidden gem popped up right around Halloween this year, and in the span of about 2 hours, I had made my way through its quiet little story and was captivated by its rich narrative, hidden secrets, and unique art style. It was refreshing to enjoy a quiet little tale of ghosts and memories without the need for jump scares, gunplay, or having to sneak away from some unstoppable boogeyman. Just a few pieces of information here and there, and only a handful of cryptic characters to interact with, was all it took to provide a thoughtful, haunting tale. More than any other entry on the list this year, Karimara had to have been my most recommended game that I tried to get everyone I could to seek out this past Halloween season. Another hidden gem that managed to rise above the tide of endless retro 2D pixel art dungeon crawlers that haven't ceased since the first Legend of Zelda, Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo was a gorgeous adventure through colorful city streets and into the depths of all kinds of hidden layers, full of puzzles, traversal challenges, and fun yo-yo-based combat. The story of the game was wholly original too, centering around a carefree yo-yo trickster on a quest to help out their Scrooge McDuck-like older relatives retrieve the key to their fortune from a colorful rogues gallery of exaggerated capitalist tycoons. The writing of the story was witty and steeped in a heavy amount of satire taking shot at consumer culture, while the action of the puzzles were purely old-school Zelda Metroidvania fare. As a fresh IP from a relatively new developer, Pipistrello got a lot of things right and delivered a fresh yet familiar adventure that would have felt right at home on a Game Boy Advance cartridge. Halfway through the list and we come to the title that we were all waiting years for and finally got our hands on. Hollow Knight Silksong showed up with a lot of anticipation, and it did not disappoint. The beautiful art and music returned once again, and the top-tier 2D Metroidvania level design was back again on full display. And so was the challenge. My goodness, Team Cherry pulled absolutely no punches when it came to some of the gauntlets you had to face in this game. Perhaps they got a little carried away with some of them? That's debatable, but what is certain is that the years of hard work the relatively small team put into making this fantastic sequel has paid off, because Silksong was a triumphant return for the series. If you were willing to brave its steep difficulty spikes along with lots and lots of other spikes and push through to the game's Symphony of the Night inspired final stretches, there was a rich, meaty gaming challenge waiting for you. Speaking of anticipation, for my one single AAA entry I seem to put on the list every single year, of course I had to return to my beloved Doom franchise for more ripping and tearing. A lot of the criticisms levied at Doom the Dark Ages boil down to it not being more of Doom Eternal, the high-octane previous entry in this new run of Doom games. But I was having too much fun during my time with this game, bashing through baddies and cutting whole squadrons of demons in half to really notice. It may have been a bit slower and chunkier this time around, and the pointless story may have been misguided and even more irrelevant than it had ever been in these games, but the spirit of being a relentless avatar of rage was still alive and as brutal as it had ever been. Doom 2016 was a heavy metal rock show of an action game, and Doom Eternal might have been a 30-hour guitar solo from the same band, but Doom the Dark Ages was tuned as low as it could go, and still brought all the rip and tear action we could have wanted. Another surprise entry that arrived last year as a small curiosity during a sampling of a few demos, this deck builder managed to really surprise me when I started playing the full version of it, eschewing a lot of the roguelike mechanics so many popular deck builders use for a more surreal, narrative-driven experience. Out of Hands plays out as if its solo developer took Kefka's Metamorphosis and translated it into a video game featuring hundreds of pictures of, well, hands. The bizarre art style makes this one of the most unique looking games to come out in a long time, and the melancholic theme the subject matter and narrative follows made it hard for me to put this one down once I started really getting into it. It is hard to pin down what makes Out of Hands so compelling, but I found myself losing hours to it without even realizing. All the way back at the beginning of the year, I thought I had found a game that would top my entire list no matter what came out in the months that followed, and it did stay up there for quite a while. The sequel to the sci-fi narrative role-playing game Citizen Sleeper is more of a game that you read than play, but like its predecessor and other literary gaming successes like Disco Elysium, there are some TTRPG-inspired role-playing mechanics to make this more than just a digital novel. Each decision you make requires a lucky roll of the dice to pull off successfully, but But win or lose, each turn the story takes is weighted and profound. The quiet optimism your poor, broken sleeper character is able to glean from even the most dire of circumstances in this universe feels more powerful than any dragon you could slay or puzzle you could solve. I was captivated at once, engrossed throughout, and elated by the time I saw this brilliant story through to its end. But this isn't a literary list. This is a gaming list. And when it came to gameplay, I don't think I had any more pure, diluted fun playing anything else this year than the final half of Jason Smith's solo-developed throwback retro boomer shooter, Cultic. Along with several other entries on the list, this second outing into the chunky, voxel-stuffed 1960s streets, forests, and temples was something that I was hotly anticipating ever since I finished up the first chapter a few years ago. Cultic is a perfect blend of both rapid-fire run-and-gun adrenaline action and creepy, atmospheric, desperate survival horror. There were dark games on the list, there were silly games on the list, games to think about, games to think around. Heck, there were even other shooters on the list. But this one little solo-developed love letter to the kind of games I played when I fell in love with gaming wins out over all of them. Cultic was my game of the year this year. I had a blast. Thanks for watching. Here's to another year of gaming as we close out 2025. Don't forget you can see all of my gaming videos from the past decade of gaming right here on my YouTube channel. And for those of you who want to join me live, I stream every week over on my Twitch channel, so be sure to give that a follow as well. Happy New Year!